Welcome everyone to this exciting game between Titan and Arrow Gaming as part of the Join Dota League. Pander here, and we already see an incredible set of picks and bans coming out as Nyx Assassin and Slark have been picked up by Arrow Gaming, meaning they're wanting all-out aggression and mid-game picks, just meaning that Titan are going to have to play a bit defensive, but instead Titan have gone for a very aggressive pick lineup as well, with the Batrider, Clinkz, and Rubic, meaning they're going to be all about finding mid-game fights and aggression, which is exactly what I love to see in a game of Dota. Bane is the next pickup by Arrow Gaming, giving them great control over the Clinkz, and a decent way to stop the Batrider from initiating, as he could easily throw up the Fiend's Grip and stop him from pulling anyone back, or Nightmare one of the targets, and make it incredibly annoying to kill. But right now, it's going to be incredibly interesting to see what both of these teams decide to do with their next pick, as Titan still needs a likely mid laner and they need another support. Wouldn't surprise me if they went with a support here. Picking something like Visage would be pretty good. It would give him a great stun against Bane, and it does pretty good work against the Nyx Assassin as well. And at this point, I really think they just need another reliable stun and just something to kind of follow up the Batrider initiation. Rubic's decent at it, but you really want Rubic on the side trying to counter-initiate when they try to go in, and stealing something like the Fiend's Grip so that you could kind of hang back and cast that on like the Slark when they go into a team fight. Assuming we're going to see a bunch of team fights. As the lineups they show right now, we're going to see a lot of them. I can just kind of feel it right now. The Titans still waiting on their pick, still need another support. Ancient Apparition has been banned out, so we're not going to see him in this game. He would have been a great choice. And it's going to be Shadow Shaman, giving them great amount of crowd control, even more pushing power. The only problem for Titan right now is there's not a lot of magic damage coming out on their team. Rubic does a little bit, Batrider does a little bit, and Shadow Shaman does a little bit, but it's nothing to really kind of fear. And that also greatly hampers their burst potential once a bit of armor is picked up. And I expect to see a fair amount of armor coming out from Arrow Gaming early on. Just early Ring of Basilius, early mech, just for that extra bit of armor, as that physical damage can be negated pretty quickly if they get up an early 4 or 5 points of armor to their entire team and a team fight. Not sure if this Nyx Assassin is going to be off lane or in the support role just yet, as he really needs to get a good bit of farm in order to kind of roam around and kind of counter gank the Clinkz. If he can kind of find the Clinkz out with a decent set of wards, see where he goes invisible, you can generally counter gank him pretty easily with an Nyx Assassin if he just kind of stays and waits around where you kind of know Clinkz is going to be. As predicting a Clinkz gank in a team game like this is not particularly hard, it's just hard to stop once he actually gets going. Arrow Gaming, at this point, they need something to combo with the Bane as well. Just another good set of damage to go with him. As Slark does decent amount of damage, but he's not a great carry on his own. So Arrow Gaming is going to have to pick up another one. Luna would not be a terrible choice this game, even though she is a bit vulnerable. But they're going with the other mounted female in Mirana, meaning Bane-Mirana combo is up on the field, and that's going to be pretty deadly to anyone who gets in range. And basically, if anyone on Titan gets caught out with that Nightmare, that should be a pretty easy kill. Because the follow-up with a Nyx Assassin or Slark pouncing on you, that's just a quick and easy death. I don't think anyone's going to be able to survive that. Naga Siren going to be the final ban out by Titan. I like this choice, as Naga mid would have been an amazing pickup for Arrow Gaming. It would have basically let them take this late. It crushes the Clinkz pretty hard once the game gets going. And they already have a Slark and Mirana device base for the Naga, so it's an excellent ban out by Titan. And Arrow are going to have to ban out likely a carry. It wouldn't surprise me if they ban out Luna themselves, as Luna would be a great pickup for Titan. It would give them a bit more team fight, it would give them even more pushing power, and a pretty strong early to mid-game fighting presence as well, depending upon what kind of build she goes. And I think that would be an excellent choice. Instead, they ban out the Lone Druid, which Titan have used a few times. He would have been another great early to mid-game pusher. And it would also give them a lot of room for Clinkz to roam around in, as you can't really go up against the Lone Druid Bear with Arrow's lineup. They just aren't built for fighting that bear this game. They're more about killing the squishy heroes and then taking an objective. Titan at this point likely need a mid laner or off laner, depending on how they want to play a Bat Rider. Clockwork's still in the pool, and he'd be a pretty solid choice here. As the only problem is that Slark can just kind of pounce out of his cogs, and that's just not that great. But it'd still mean a lot of extra mana burn. It'd be great control. Instead, they're going to go with Viper, which means Slark and Mirana are in a lot of trouble once he gets up his ultimate. And he's incredibly tanky and hard to kill. So Titan are going all in for a mid-game kind of push, gank, and play aggressive style, which I think is greatly going to work out in their favor. If Arrow Gaming don't just pick up a big teamfight controller at this point, as they have good crowd control, but it's not great. It's all fairly easily dodged or interrupted. Slark's going to have a hard time getting in. And Nyx Assassin likely going to be a support at this point. But I couldn't tell you until we see this final pick. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bane Mirana go aggressive tri-lane and try and shut down the Clinkz. And it's going to be an Alchemist, likely towards the mid lane. Not what I would have thought Arrow Gaming had picked up. He's been fairly popular as of late, just kind of in that mid role. He plays a very good roaming controller. He's decent as he scales into the later portions of the game, but he's mostly played as the roaming, basically ganker as of late, and he just tries to run around. He doesn't go for that farming role unless something terribly goes wrong in the game, where he's forced to just pick up a few early points in the Brevil's Greed and go to town farming in the jungle. But it's really going to be how Titan lanes this. Are they going to expect the aggressive tri-lane and try and dodge it, or are they going to try and do their own thing and play up against it? Viper likely going to be in the mid lane, as it's picked up by KYXY. He's generally towards the mid lane. And this would definitely be a great option for the Viper to just run in the mid lane, dominate the Alchemist, because I don't think Alchemist can do a whole lot up against the Viper. He can throw a few points into the early acid spray and basically just try and harass him down, but whoop-de-doo. Viper is one of the best in the game at just avoiding damage and returning it. And let's see if there's any early game shenanigans. There's a lot of teams like to run and place those early wards, and it'd be a great option here on Arrow to try and get wards up in the jungle of Titan, just to make sure Batrider can't go in and get an easy Firefly farm after going to the off lane. And Batrider already down bottom. He's got the boots, so he's going to be extra safe. He's picked up the ward as well. And he's likely going to go do this just to make sure they don't stack up anything, and nicely placed. It sees any ganks that are coming in this area. It makes sure that he's pretty safe, and it also has just enough vision to get that ward spot. So that's just an excellent ward, one I'd highly recommend for both sides, both Radiant and Dire. Just get one right up in this area. Make sure that you're very safe. Arrow have not gone and tried to stop the early stacking that Titan's likely going to perform with their supports. Just kind of a passive overall start, as neither team wants to really reveal their lanes. Clinkz hovering around the mid lane, likely going to be just kind of waiting around, wanting to go up top lane. And it is going to be kind of dual lanes. Not what I would expect out of Titan, as dual lanes are not particularly effective in this situation. Mirana Bane would pretty much crush a Rubic Clinkz dual lane, and Nyx Assassin and Slark would pretty well handle the Bat Rider and Shadow Shaman lane. So this is not in favor of Titan going in if the lanes stay like they are, but I expect to see some lane rotations, and it's not going to actually be the dual lane. It's going to be a tri-lane in its fullest. Nyx Assassin, Bane, and Mirana. Clinkz is not going to be very happy. We'll do a quick check for sentries, and there are... Yes, there's sentries on Bane. Mirana did fire an arrow, but it didn't look like it hit anything. Or no, it looks like it might have hit Viper in the mid lane, but they didn't follow it up. That seems to be the case, as he's way too low of health to just taking a bit of harassment from the Alchemist. Rubic going to be rotating in the mid lane. I like this Observer Ward, preventing Mirana from roaming around. But it's going to be Clinkz. Sentry Ward is placed. They do spot him out. And there's the arrow, second Sentry Ward. Easy first blood. Cost them 2 Sentry Wards, but shutting Clinkz down early, I'd take that.
First blood.
And at this point, I would almost just rotate the Bat Rider over, as he's doing pretty well so far, sitting at 3 and 2. But this is just not a good lane for Slark as well. Slark just can't do anything. He's gone with the smart build, picking up the early magic stick, making sure that he can't be harassed down by the Batrider. Because if he wants to throw 3 or 4 stacks of sticky napalm on you, you just pounce away, pop your stick charges, and you're practically back at full health. Rubic still hasn't made any moves this game, as he's just kind of sitting around. Surprised he hasn't gone top and at least attempted to contest this lane or help out anyone. But Clinkz is rotating around. Bane is here. And they do spot him out. This is going to be a likely 3-on-3s. The mid laners could easily rotate in. Problem is, Rubic's only level 1, doesn't have that much damage. Viper is here doing some good damage to Bane. But there's that brain sap being way too strong. Nice Nightmare. Beautiful combo. But Bane does fall. Alchemist takes a kill. No, he doesn't. Mirana steals it. But Alchemist getting very low. Rubic's low as well. But here's the rotation in by the Nyx Assassin. And they are going to be able to pick off the Rubic, as Nyx Assassin does seal the deal. And Clinkz is out of mana. Question is, will he go for the Alchemist? Nice job popping the salve. Exactly what you want. Arrow off the mark. Misses 2. But it should be the Alchemist being finished off, as Viper takes another kill. As he's 1-1-1. And there's a bit of lag going on, but it should be resolved pretty soon. Lag pauses generally don't last that long unless someone actually disconnects. And we should be back in just a moment. Mirana picking up 2 kills. Nyx picking up 1, Clinkz, and Viper picking up 1 as well. Overall, that favors the Viper slightly, even though he did die. He managed to kill the Alchemist and get pretty much solo experience for that. So he's up a full level, already level 4, maxing the corrosive skin, which is the correct decision in this case. You get the extra magic resistance. You basically become invincible. And it looks like Shadow Shaman going to be taken down in the bottom lane. Slark has a pounce in a few seconds, and I don't think there's any ways getting out of there. It looks like there was a multi-kill going on down bottom. As Slark picks up 2 kills, must have had the Batrider diving, as that's the only way he picks up that extra kill. And that's just a really greedy play, as Titan are definitely on the back foot at the moment. They're getting very little on their Clinkz, who's pretty useless at this point. Nice dodge of the arrow, but there's a stun by Nyx Assassin. Surprised that stun was so late. If he'd thrown it out earlier, they would have picked up the kill on the Clinkz yet again. He was just in the edge of Sentry range when that started. And there's Batrider going for the early stacks. And apparently that ward wouldn't have made a difference if they had blocked off this camp, as it did spawn Mud Golems, the bane of all Batriders, as he's not going to be able to farm that effectively until they're taken out, and he doesn't have a good way to kill them at this point. Bottom lane still going pretty effectively for Titan, considering they gave 2 kills to the Slark. Slark only sitting at 8-3 to the 19-4 of Batrider. Shadow Shaman has come down here, and this is a good idea if he doesn't die again. But I don't think he's going to last too long. Nice juke there by Shadow Shaman. He's just out of range. And this is a whole lot of extra experience he's going to pick up, where the supports of Arrow aren't going to get that much unless they really get going. And Bane is able to pull, so it's not that bad. Nyx Assassin got a good bit up top. He joined the party late, picked up a bunch of extra experience during all that. And the Alchemist kind of roaming around, not doing a whole lot in this mid lane. He can't really stand up to the Viper at this point. Viper just hit 6. He's on his way to the mech, which is pretty standard for Viper at this point. And every time he walks forward, he takes a full stack of that corrosive skin. That's the big problem with the Alchemist, and why I'm surprised to see him in this matchup. Every time you throw that acid spray out, you get hit with corrosive skin. Every tick of acid spray procs it, so he just takes a ton of damage from it. And until he gets his ultimate, it's pretty disastrous. And at this point, he's sitting at 5-0. You pretty much could have gotten more out of any other mid laner at this point. And considering his last pick, just a really poor decision by Arrow. And it's costing them. As I don't think we're going to see any kills anytime soon, unless Batrider makes a really dangerous move. I don't foresee it happening. Both teams are going to farm up for a little bit, pick up that first set of items, and then go for more aggression, as they really need to find those initiating items. Bane has boots, so he can initiate decently well with a Nightmare, but it's still greedy. Same thing with Mirana. She has the arrow, but it's not that reliable, and they're going to likely try a gank on the mid lane here. It should work out if Alchemist starts his stun up. He has 2 points in it already. Just start the stun, throw it out, then follow it up. they need to have the Alchemist initiate, because if they have Bane or Mirana try and initiate, there's far less it's far less likely to actually work. Question is, will Alchemist start charging a stun? And they see the Bane. Bane he is actually fast enough. Viper is really slow. Nice dodge on the arrow. The Nightmare is just a bit late. Batrider almost level 5. Shadow Shaman is there, and there should be a dead Bane. Way too greedy by arrow. You just can't run in there and give Viper a free kill like that. It was a good opportunity to make a gank, but the concoction was late. The Nightmare was late. The arrow was off the mark, and just not a very good engagement overall. They gave up a free kill to a Viper who's already dominating. Slark has recovered incredibly well, considering he was shut down early. He's almost one of the top farmers, thanks to the fact that they basically abandoned this lane other than sending the Shadow Shaman down here for experience. But he's still one of the lower level supports so far, as the other supports have hit 5, with the exception of Bane at this point. And Rubic, who's not going to get anything done at this point. He's basically there to hit level 6 and steal a big ultimate. There are a lot of good ultimates to steal. Shadow Dance is solid. Vendetta is solid. I don't think there's a bad ultimate he can actually steal this game. Courier just kind of waiting around. And it is going to be a nice stun. Arrow flies. Does hit, but nice invisibility, though Bane is there. And this should be an easy kill. Well played, making sure they had dust. And that's how you have to make these ganks work. It was pretty easy, as Nyx has almost transitioned to a carry this game, as Mirana's been played as more of a support role. Nightmare is there on the Viper. Should be a pretty easy kill, but they're not going to go for it. Shadow Shaman is here, and Viper's going to turn it around. Mirana didn't throw out the Starstorm. She must have just been too low on mana. Yeah, that looks to be the case. She didn't have the mana. They got a little too greedy, and they paid for it. Viper, yet another kill, or another assist, and he's level 8 already, eclipsing this Alchemist pretty heavily. And there's just nothing they can really do against him. And this is the big kind of worry on the side of Arrow, is that the Viper gets off to a good start, and then he can basically run around and buy space for the Clinkz. Clinkz, he's level 6, so he's getting his levels. He's gotten the Star of the Orchid, one Oblivion staff already, and he looks to try and farm out a camp or two. He's not gone the traditional 1 point in Skeleton Walk build. He takes the second point to make sure that he has that little bit of time where he can be invisible and pop off the Skeleton Walk yet again, as that few extra seconds really matters when you're trying to roam around and gank. You can't wait that half a second to go back invisible as someone might see you. You need to just pop it right away, and that's why he puts the second point there. It's still not traditional, as generally you want to find someone on the first mount of Skeleton Walk, and it delays your rapid fire. But it's still okay. Shadow Shaman in a bit of trouble. He doesn't have the mana. He should have just gone for the very safe play of throwing out the CC, and they would have had a kill on Slark. Instead, he got greedy throughout the Ether Shock, and Ether Shock is a lot of mana. It does good damage, but it is a lot of mana, and he could have easily thrown out Shackles and waited for Rubic and Batrider to arrive, and that would have been a pretty easy kill. Though, big item here, Batrider does finally pick up the Blink Dagger. It's a little late for most Batriders, but he's still done a good job picking it up at a pretty reasonable time, considering he had to go bottle first. Viper gonna have the mech up in a few gold, as pretty much everyone's kind of working on the components at the moment. Slark likely to go the drums build. Just basically pick up drums, pick up your magic wand, and go for ganks. I would expect him to pick up a Shadow Blade a little bit later, as that's just such a powerful item for Slark, and he'd be amazing to set up ganks this game. And it'd be also really great to get a catch on Clinkz, as Clinkz is going to be fairly vulnerable for a while still. He's only level 7, he's not going any kind of defensive items, he's not even picked up boots. So he's going to be very slow for the most part. Big wraparound as the smoke has been popped. Support's leading the way, and this is going to be the reveal of the Blink Dagger. Mirana hexed up, easy kill. Impale is off the mark, but Nick Assassin shows off his Blink Dagger as well, as he just easily gets away. Honestly, unless they push this tower, not really worth. Mirana, level 4, not particularly valuable this game. It's not a farming Mirana like we've seen in times past. It's just a complete support Mirana. And it's not even going to push tower. So they spend a lot of time spending 4 people up there. And we'll quick check. It is Batrider who got the kill. If Clinkz had got it, it might have been a bit more worth it. But definitely not when the Batrider picks it up. As Clinkz is just not doing that great. He's not doing poorly, but he's not doing that great. And they really need him to finish off that Orchid soon, so you can start roaming around and finding the ganks. Viper has now finished off his mech and is doing a great job of just continually denying the Alchemist. I'm still just in awe of why you pick an Alchemist in this matchup if you're going to get denied this hard, as it's almost not worth it to pick him up in this situation. And that's probably the only criticism of Arrow so far, is they've given away 1 or 2 kind of extra kills, and they've put an Alchemist in a matchup that you can't win. And it's really hurting them at this point. They can't take this super late if they don't have the carry potential. If Mirana were actually farming, I think they would have an okay chance, as she does do a decent job of carrying along with the Slark. But Slark's farming okay. He's the top farmer in the game, but he's by no means blowing most out of the water with his farm at this point. And he's up against the Viper, who will pretty much crush him in a matchup, as he has so many different attack slows, and it basically neuters Slark, which is the whole point of Viper. You pick Viper against single core lineups that don't generally have an answer to his ultimate, and we're going to see a bit of engagement up top, as it was a blink used to take out one already, as the Nyx Assassin has fallen. Shadow Shaman throws out the wards, as we do see another kill on Slark picking up another kill. He's forced to pop the ultimate, but he just can't really fight. Mirana going to go down as well. Those wards doing a good bit of work, and another big win by Titan. Titan just does not have the ability to push after this, because the wards are a little bit off of actually getting the tower, but still, you take that as a big win. You kill a carry and a support for just your Clinkz. As much as you hate to give up the Clinkz, it's pretty worth it. He'd used most of his gold already, so no big deal on him. The only problem was they spent a lot of time rotating everyone up there, and this gave Alchemist a bit of extra farm. He's picked up the mech, likely going to go for a Blink Dagger next as kind of another initiator, as the Fiend's Grip was using that last engagement, but not particularly effectively. And this is one good tool Alchemist can use to make a comeback. Acid Spray, it does do physical damage, so it will harass the Ancients, and you reduce their armor pretty significantly. Surprised we didn't see a ward up in this area, just to make sure that this doesn't happen, as Titan has to kind of suspect something's up with the Alchemist if he's not being shown on the map in a significant amount of time. He didn't come to that last engagement, where he would have been fairly effective if he got down to good Acid Spray and Concoction. But instead, he's just going to go keep farming and try and bring his net worth back up. Still no point in the Grievel's Greed, which would have been greatly helpful against his lack of farm. But instead, he's just going to go for the pure fight build, and he's going to have to fight soon, as he's just not in a great spot. They needed him to do a bit more in the early to mid game roaming around, but that just didn't happen. Taking a good look at the graphs, Titan are doing a pretty good job maintaining a small lead, thanks to the fact Arrow's given up a few extra kills that they probably shouldn't have, and the fact that they've just farmed significantly better. Arrow's done a good job of finding a few more kills, but they're just not enough, considering you don't have the late game advantage. And that's not a terrible time for Clinkz picking up the Orca. He's picked it up just before the 15-minute mark, considering he was shut down fairly effectively throughout the early game, and Alchemist will deny the tower up top. Arrow just still not making anything happen with their lineup. They need to basically find a way to get something going, as Batrider is about to have his 4-staff. He's just a few gold off of it. And it wouldn't surprise me to see someone just jump Batrider at this point, though the initiation's a bit lacking outside of the Nyx Assassin. Just have him blink in with Spike Carapace on, land and impale, and you could easily go from there and make a kill happen. Bane gonna throw down Sentry Ward, though why he threw it down in Vision of Everyone is beyond me. And it's not gonna even see this as Overward, just on the edge, and this Sentry Ward just on the edge as well. Oof, unfortunate by Arrow, wasting Sentry Wards, as I don't foresee Clinkz wanting to run anywhere near the middle of the map at this point. They kind of have to figure he's going to be out farming and looking for kills on the bottom lane, as they know there's sentry wards up top as well. This greatly hurts Arrow's mid-game potential. They don't have the sentry wards to actually use. They've got one dust on the Bane Elemental, and I don't believe they have dust anywhere else. Okay, they do have some on Mirana. But that's still a lot of extra money placed in consumables that's not placed in fighting items. As nice as having the dust for Clinkz is, you still have to deal the damage to kill him, and you still have to survive his onslaught. And that's the big reason why a lot of teams kind of fall into this trap of trying to stop a stealth hero. They buy a ton of consumables to stop him, but they burn easily 1,000, 2,000 gold on their supports trying to stop him, and it doesn't amount to more than 1 or 2 kills, which is definitely not worth it. Though Slark is going to be in a great spot here. He's picked up a Shadow Blade, and he's going to likely roam around and gank pretty soon. But we have an engagement in the mid lane as the Alchemist basically doesn't have a prayer, and that is an easy kill. Batrider showing off his blink and Force Staff, and there's just nothing this Alchemist can really do. They see that the Ancients have been taken, so they know what the Alchemist has been doing. Bane Elemental comes in, gets a decent amount of damage on the Viper, and they're going to throw everything at him, but a beautiful set of Serpent Wards is there. And they do some good damage, but they don't lock the Slark, and Slark going to continue his onslaught. Nice Vendetta, but it's not enough, and Nyx Assassin falls. Slark is there, but the wards are not enough, and he's going to be able to jump away. Batrider's still pursuing, but I don't think they can actually kill Slark at this point. Slark is actually going to go man mode and pop off the Shadow Blade. Slark regenerating a lot. Batrider likely to go down. Slark will get some good damage, and they do get the flame break, but it is not enough damage. Rubic tried to go in there and do some damage as well. Alchemist stuns himself, which is kind of disappointing, as he likely started the concoction and just didn't think that there was enough teleport time. Or he thought there was less teleport time than there was, as you can't stun yourself in engagement like that. And that's, I'd call it a win for Titan. Not a huge win, as they didn't get the tower. They didn't take any map objectives. But I definitely have to call it a win, and it looks like the experience and Goldgraph are actually showing something else. As it was a fairly even exchange overall, the problem was their characters are higher level. And when their heroes are higher level, they give more experience away. So it was a pretty decent win for Arrow overall. Still not a good win they need to actually stay in this game long term. But it's definitely a good stalling win, and they're going to be able to do a whole lot with that. The question is, will Titan go for a big smoke gank? And I think they're going to down bottom. There's the smoke popped. Clinkz is in Skeleton Walk. And this should be an easy kill on the Mirana. I don't see any way she gets out of this. She just burned the leap. And no, Clinkz doesn't go on it. Really surprised he didn't. Arrow flies, Sentry Ward is up. And they're going to blink right on top of Mirana. Mirana takes a ton of damage, but Slark is there doing some good damage, but he just does not have the help. Alchemist is there. They're going to burn Clinkz alive, but the Serpent Wards are back up and dropped. Viper's there with a good ultimate, and a nice set of shackles keeps the Alchemist down, but his regeneration's too strong, and the mech is pretty useful as well. Nyx Assassin, no way to escape this, as he's just slowed to pieces, and a big win for Titan. Almost got turned around, as Slark still runs around invisible. He couldn't find the Rubic in the end. And the Rubic has stolen the concoction. Oof, that's going to be big in these next fights, if he can get a good concoction off. Lift him up, throw the concoction. You've got easily 6-7 seconds worth of true stun time on a single target, and there are no BKBs coming up anytime soon. Alchemist is working towards his. Wouldn't surprise me if Slark picks up one fairly soon as well. But it's just not in the future anytime soon. But still, the big thing about this game, though, is towers have not been taken 20 minutes in the game. The only tower that was taken was this top tower, and I believe it was denied, which is kind of meh, as it's the top upper lane, it's the top kind of outer tower. That tower doesn't mean a whole lot on either side. It's a little bit more valuable to the dire side, but it's just not that important. There's not going to be many engagements up in that area unless they happen in the jungle, but neither one of those tier 1s are that important, and they're pretty easy to just give up and say we don't care about it. Sentry Ward, yet again, just slightly out of range, but this time it's Titan who are just a bit unlucky. As that's almost touching at this point. There's just that little gap. They also have another set of sentries and observers down bottom. Really want to hunt the Slark down. As Arrow, they've got another huge set of sentries in their own jungle. 4 there and 1 in the mid lane, so it's even more consumables they just don't have available to them. Mirana pops the ultimate. They're going to go right for Clinkz. He does pop the skeleton walk, but it's not enough. That's a pretty nice Fiend's Grip, and they are able to kill him, but it's going to be pretty expensive. Bane takes a lot of damage, but not dead, and that means Slark is able to escape. It looks like there's a teleport canceled, so I could have swore there were 2 coming, as Mirana finds a kill on the Rubic down bottom, thanks to the fact that they didn't see that Observer Ward. And this is actually a big win for Arrow. They should take the gold lead with that, as they took the tower, and they're about even on experience. The gold lead's coming back. I thought it was a bit closer. Yeah, there we go. That's the kills and tower updating. And it's not a whole lot in Titan's favor. Titan has a good chance to take this late, but that's just the problem. Arrow has a great lineup for these mid-game fights, and for the next 20 minutes, they're going to have the advantage overall. Clinkz is not that farmed, and Clinkz will carry this game once he gets 6 items, but he's very far from that at the moment. And he always has the potential of just being burst down by a Slark, especially if he goes Basher pretty soon. And it looks like he might go Scotty. Scotty would be a decent choice. The only problem with Scotty is it takes a while to get online, and it's not that effective against anyone on the Titan team. The attack slow is nice, movement speed slow is nice, but it's not like you're kiting around a melee hero. These are all ranged carries, with the exception of no one, as everyone on Titan is a ranged carry. Batrider doesn't feel like a ranged carry at times, so he's the only one that's going to really hamper. But that's just the kind of advantage of, or disadvantage of Scotty against ranged heroes, is you can't really kite him around as well. Alchemist rotating in towards the mid lane. He's kind of unsure about his items at this point. It wouldn't surprise me if he went Heart and just said, I'm going to be the big tanky force, you're not going to kill me. And he just kind of runs into the fights and tries to soak up damage. Surprised he didn't go for the Blink Dagger though. As generally the Alchemist in the mid row, you go Mech, Blink, then either BKB or something like Maelstrom in order to get damage, and then just kind of play as the Initiator and Roamer. But this game he's gone for a much more farm-centric role, and he's recovered pretty well considering he got beat down just ridiculously hard in the early game. And he's going to continue to just sit around and farm. He doesn't feel the need to roam. There is a nice ward placed here by Arrow. It's going to see these rotations into the bottom lane. The only problem with that ward, though, is it doesn't really tell if they're into Roshan, as it's just not that good a position. But they will be able to spot him out thanks to the fact that Shadow Shaman is shown. Batriders here. Will they spot the Mirana? Yeah, easy kill. No chance. And they're going to be able to take this bottom tower pretty much for free, along with the kill. There's not going to be even a rebuttal mid. I would have sworn the Alchemist would have just pushed the mid lane, as that's generally what you want to do. You see 3 or 4 in the bottom lane, you just push the mid lane as much as you can, or the outer lane, but in this case the outer lane is fairly heavily pushed in favor of Titan. And it's going to be Slark. Will he be spotted out? He is spotted out, and he's going to be going down pretty quickly. There is a newly purchased gem on the Shadow Shaman. That's how they saw him. And now Slark knows, crap, I'm in trouble. They've got a gem, they've got mobility, and they have an instant Hex, which is the big thing. That's why Shadow Shaman is picked up. You pick him up for the Hex. Everything else about his kit's great, but that instant sheep early on is just devastating if you can get an early mobility item. Arrow does land on Batrider, but nothing's going to come of it. No way they go and engage that, especially with Slark down. He's the only carry at the moment for Arrow. Everyone else is just not that farmed. And here's the question, will they actually go for it? Mirana tried to deny it, but just a little too early. And that will be Clinkz picking up a tower. So as the towers didn't fall early game, Titan picked up 3 in the span of the last few moments. They picked up mid, they picked up both bottom towers, And that's going to be a heavy gold swing, because I don't think we're going to see them wanting to fight until they pick up their next set of items. They're all getting really close. And his experience is even, as Arrow did take a slight lead for a little bit. It's all about that gold at the moment, and as we see, that drop is huge. Clinkz gonna have his BKB up pretty soon, and Viper has just finished off his Aghanim Scepter, and let's see what he has on the courier as well. Yeah, that's big. He's going for the evasion. And there we go. Big pickup there by Viper. But the question is, will they spot this Roshan? And I don't think Titan's going to see it. It's a pretty free Roshan. No, they're all back in their base. They have the tier 1 tower here to teleport to. But they wanted to get that next level of items, and Arrow played it pretty well. They realized Clinkz is likely a little short of an item. Viper's just finishing off the item. So they're going to go take Roshan. I don't think Titan, excuse me, wanted to fight before they finished off those items, as they were so close. So they just said, we'll take it. It's a good thing to do in pubs, especially if you know someone's really close to an item. They generally don't want to fight until they pick up the item. So if you see an objective that's reasonably close to your team, like Roshan was there, you can just take it. It's a great way to get ahead. And they had a very good observer ward as well. They would have seen anyone rotating in, as that has some great vision towards his mid lane, and it sees anyone teleporting to tier 2 as well. So that's why they were super sure that they could go take that Roshan. But Arrow's going to look to fight. Slark is up here. Really surprised they didn't put Nyx invisible, but that's going to be a quick kill on Rubic, which is exactly what they needed. Separate ones are out, but they aren't doing a whole lot at this point. They're just jumping out on Slark, and Shadow Shaman's dead. Rubic's teleported back in. That will be the death of Slark, but that's just the Aegis. And Slark should be able to just pounce out of this if he wants to. Shadow Blade, a few seconds left on it. And it's going to be yet another kill as Shadow Shaman is dead. Viper very low. Rubic low as well, and he did manage to pick up the gem. He did buy back. Batrider bought back. And yeah, that is some big buybacks overall. And that's just not what you want to have happen on side Titan. They lose several of their heroes. They're going to give Alchemist some decent extra gold with the wards. Not too much, as they died off right in time. But that gold swing is going to look pretty messy in a few seconds, especially after this mid lane turret falls. And I don't think they're going to stop on the side of Arrow. Their ultimates are pretty much back up, with the exception of Fiend's Grip. They're all about 10 to 15 seconds away. Slark jumps forward, doesn't find anyone. Was hoping to catch on to the Clinkz. And I'm really surprised you haven't seen Arrow picking up a gem, but it looks like they just want to steal it at this point and make sure that Titan doesn't have the gem of their own, so they don't see the roaming in Slark. Shadow Shaman does have the gem again, and he's gone an interesting build, but I like the choice to go to Yule Scepter. He can use it to avoid the Slark pounce. He can use it as an extra form of CC, giving him 3 total CC targets. And he's basically a giant CC bot at this point. And if he gets really skillful, he can actually get 4 sets of CC off with a nice ward trap. And nice deny by Viper. Though even smarter decision by Arrow to basically say, let's back up. Dust was thrown, but no harm, no foul. They just wanted to make sure that no one was following them. And that gives Slark another big item. He's finished off Sky of Scotty. At this point, he just needs to pick up the BKB, and he'll be set for the game. And he'll be in great shape to carry as well, as having the BKB prevents Shadow Shaman from doing anything to him, as he could easily pounce out of ward traps. He won't get hexed up. He won't get shackled. And Rubic doesn't have a whole lot he can do against him either. And I think that's the obvious choice here for Slark. Same thing with the Alchemist. They both need their BKBs. And he's gone a very late Vanguard, which has helped him in the last few engagements to stay alive. But it's not a great item going late. And Alchemist just kind of playing utility bot and praying that the Slark can carry hard enough. And that's a risky proposition. This likely Heaven's Halberd is going to be useful, but you really want to see more out of this Alchemist. You want to see him being able to fight, not just run in, soak a bunch of damage. And there's the Heaven's Halberd. Viper should be on his way to a Butterfly unless he just wants to tank up with a Heaven's Halberd of his own. And I definitely think Butterfly would be the better choice here. You get more evasion, you get more attack speed, and you just become overall significantly stronger. And I definitely think it's a stronger choice here. As Viper really doesn't need to tank up that much. He's got good damage, he's decently tanky. Especially considering he has the mech. So just go all out, go for the damage, go for the big late game item. Your team can handle it. They weren't that far off of winning that last fight in the river, even though they did spend several buybacks. It's just the fact that Arrow just got such a good team fight. And Arrow's going to have at least one or two more in order to secure a victory here. They haven't taken that much from the map. They've taken the tier 1 towers, but 31 minutes in, tier 1 towers, whoop-de-doo. It's just not that important at all, as they don't really do a whole lot other than help secure Roshan and a little bit of extra map pressure. Big gank gonna come out here from the Nyx Assassin, as he is in Vendetta, he's rotating around, and it is Viper going with Heaven's Halberd, wanting to tank up a bit more. Batrider picks up BKB, Mirana ultimate pop, but it's gonna be on to Clinkz. Clinkz definitely saw something, but no way to latch on Slark. Clinkz just way too fast at Skeleton Walk. And the question is, what will Clinkz pick up next? It wouldn't surprise me if he went for crit at this point. Just say, I'm going to burn everything and rip apart the Slark. Slark has picked up another ultimate orb. Kind of curious to see what he actually uses that for. He's got the Scotty. Could go for Lincoln's just to prevent that initial CC on him. But that's kind of my feeling for it. It doesn't do enough for him this game. There's too many spammable spells. You have Rubic and Shadow Shaman alone have a ton of easy spammable spells. And if Rubic has a spell already that he likes, you can just throw out the spell steal to break it. It's not a long cooldown, and it's not that vital to a fight if he has a good spell already. So just throw that out, break the Lincoln Sphere, and go to town. He could be going for Manta as well. Manta would probably be a decent choice, but I'm not sure about it at this point. I haven't seen many Slarks go Manta style. They generally want to end the game by this point. And if they don't, Assault Cross would also be a nice choice. Give his team armor, give some more Innis armor to the rest of his team. As we see a bunch of Ghost Steppers coming out from Arrow, and that's not a terrible choice against Clinkz, as he does do a lot of damage. Same with Viper, they both rely on auto attacks. And there's not a whole lot of magic damage coming out from Titan. There's still the Ether Shock and the Fade Bolt for some good magical burst, but that's not enough to really do a whole lot, even with the Ghost Scepters. Bane likely working towards that Force Staff. Just going to be able to shoot forward, pop a Fiend's Grip or Nightmare. And another smart kind of decision by Bane. You want to max out the Enfeeble before you get the Nightmare. Enfeeble allows you to basically neuter someone on Titan, and they could basically chunk down Clinkz, and he loses pretty much half his damage as soon as that Enfeeble lands on him. And Enfeeble does go through BKB, so that you can Enfeeble someone, and even if their BKB's up, they still lose the damage. They aren't safe from it. Smoke pop by Titan, still just nothing going. This smoke can be complete dud unless they wrap around and go for it. And there's a crit coming out. There's a Chrysalis. That's the extra damage that Clinkz needs. And here's going to be the big engagement. Clinkz is not going to be spotted out, but that's going to be Bane taking a ton of damage. Rubic go down already. Viper in a bit of trouble, but with all those Ghost Scepters, there's just not a whole lot that either side can do. And that's going to be a pretty decent engagement on the side of Titan. They are going to be able to take down the Alchemist, as that was a lot of flash for not a whole lot of substance. Nice use of the Force Staff to get away, but Alchemist is still going to take a lot of damage from his own concoction, and right as his ultimate wears out, Slark comes back in, but he just doesn't do that damage, and Batrider falls. So far 1 for 2, and it is going to be 2 for 2, and now Shadow Shaman going to go down, taking way too much damage. And this is the problem with Slark. He gets on a roll, with 19 points of Essence Shift, stealing almost 60 agility. His damage is nuts, and Titan just couldn't finish him off. He got really low. He was down in triple digits, low triple digits, but he was able to just run away and get everything back up. with the fact that his ultimate is one of the most powerful ultimates in the game in terms of survivability. Mirana gonna fire the arrow, but Roshan not up just yet. Take a quick look at the graph. Gold, pretty much nothing. Arrow and a pretty commanding experience lead, all things considered. This is the biggest one of the game, as both these teams have been pretty even overall. We do have a bit of a pause, likely just more lag, as both of these players are on, I believe, the Southeast Asian servers, as that just causes issues all around. And at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if Nyx Assassin went for a Dagon or a Ethereal Blade just to deal more damage, as Arrow doesn't have the damage at the moment. If Slark isn't let to just roam around and steal a bunch of get a bunch of action shift charges, he just doesn't. They just don't have anyone to deal damage. Alchemist has a little bit with his ultimate, but it's not enough. He's going for an Assault Cuirass, which I think is the correct decision at this point. They need the extra armor. The armor reduction is going to be very nice as well. And it means he's even more tanky, as he definitely needs the extra armor, so he doesn't get a whole lot on his own. And as we saw in that last fight, he was pretty tanky. He soaked a lot of damage, but it wasn't enough to keep him alive. Courier is bringing the Lincoln Sphere to Slark, so he doesn't get jumped on. Kind of worried that that's not going to be enough, as I would have loved to have seen someone else pick up the Lincoln Sphere, as greedy as that is. Mirana gonna be sheeped up, but nice use of the Yule Scepter to stay alive. That's another great reason to pick up the Yule Scepter, so Slark can't pounce and kill you like that, as they had an opportunity to jump on him, but just no luck actually getting there. And it's also another great initiation tool. Surprised he hasn't gone for the Aghanim Scepter, as the Aghanim Scepter Shadow Shamans is one of the best in the game, just how much damage it does. You get up to 130 damage every shot with that. It's just such a powerful tool. But instead he goes for utility, and it's okay. The only problem here is Rubic is just pitifully poor at this point. He's got to pick up an item to actually initiate on. And we'll take a look at net worth. Yeah, he doesn't have anything. And that's really hurting in these team fights, as he needs to be able to actually move around the fights. As we saw last time, he was picked off fairly early. He doesn't have any real health. He doesn't have any real anything. And that's definitely a big disadvantage. Same thing with the Bane Elemental. The difference is Bane has a little bit in the Urn of Shadows. So he has extra health. He has naturally just significantly more armor. And he's getting a few small items. So it's a small win on the side of Bane Elemental over the Rubic. But neither one of them are particularly happy about their situation, being that they've got pretty much nothing. This smoke by arrow is going to be pretty risky, though I like this decision that they're finally going to be using the Nyx Assassin to actually run in there and initiate. The Sentry Lord won't spot him, but they're going to run right into the enemy team. Bat Rider starts the Firefly and starts running away. Rubic going to be taken out real quick. Nyx Assassin in a lot of trouble, doesn't get off a whole lot. And Clinkz is going to town, and there's just nothing that's stopping him at this point. He does do some good damage to the Alchemist, but Alchemist falls. And all that tank for naught. Is Slark going to go down as well? No chance to survive that engagement. Bane, I don't even think he got a Fiend's Grip off. And yeah, he got one, but it didn't have any real effect. It didn't stop anyone of any importance. They're going to be able to catch Mirana. Nice use of the lead to jump into there. They almost caught her with a nice Yule Scepter, but not enough. And the Slark just doesn't have the damage output to kill people fast enough. He's decently survivable, and he has decent damage if he can just continually fight. But when you leave Clinkz alone, good luck is all I can say. He's almost got the full Daedalus, and he's going to have that up for the next engagement. He's got 3,000 gold. He's likely going to stay for buyback just to be extra safe, but I don't think he needs to. There's very little chance that he gets engaged upon and killed. Mirana did shoot an arrow, but it helped out Titan more than anything. And Roshan just can't do anything at this point. If you try to stack Viper, that corrosive skin just melts him. And that's Clinkz for the Aegis, so buy your Daedalus. And no, he's not actually going Daedalus, he's going MKB. Going for more damage and the chance to actually stop the Fiend's Grip. Not a terrible choice. It's a good item if you shoot and get a lucky proc on Bane, that could instantly stop the Fiend's Grip. So I don't blame him for it. Only problem is I don't see any real evasion coming out on the side of Arrow. Slark might have picked some up instead of the Lincoln Sphere, but too late for that. He's already got the Lincoln Sphere out and needs damage. He just doesn't have enough at this point. And survivability, as nice as it is, it's not that useful. He should have enough already. I mean, he's got 15 armor and 2,500 health. You have to be able to survive that. And he's got the Alchemist, who soaked a bunch of damage up as well. And he's almost picked up the Assault Cross. That's going to be big, as his team will get extra armor, and they'll get the extra minus armor on the enemy team. As there's a decent amount of armor on pretty much everyone, with the exception of Rubic and Shadow Shaman. Well, actually, Rubic, Shadow Shaman, and Bat Rider will go to 0 armor when that sets up. And that could mean a big deal. That could be a really big deal. As the difference between 24% less damage and 0 with the Assault Cross up is pretty hefty. There's just not any armor items up on the side of Titan. I'm really surprised they haven't picked up at least a basic armor item or two. Picked up the Ring of Basilius. I mean, that'd be a good choice here for one of the supports. Even just throwing that on Rubic. Picking up the extra armor and mana regeneration would be huge for his team. And to prevent them from basically being shut down in fights once this Assault Cross is online. 41 minutes into the game, it's still anyone's game. Especially Titans at this point, as their Clinkz is fat. And a fat Clinkz is really useful. Well, Slark is hitting that point where he dips down right in the late game. He goes well into the ultra late game, but he's just at that point where he's not farming fast enough to keep up with the big carries. He can't really roam around and get solo kills anymore. And his teamfight presence is okay at best. It's the point where Arrow has to worry about just the liability of going Slark, Alchemist, and having 2 melee carries on their team. Arrow kind of waiting around to throw out an arrow, but no chance of hitting. And there's Slark picking up the Basher. That's going to be a game-changing item if he gets a good set of bashes. Problem is, it's RNG. And RNG is a very cruel mistress at times. And we'll see if he can actually get something going with it. As if he gets a good bash on Clinkz, they could win this fight real quick. It's just a matter of actually getting the RNG goddess to actually help you. And Titan's going to play it very safe. I like this decision from Titan. Get the Daedalus up on Clinkz. Make sure he has buyback as well, which he doesn't have at the moment. He'll have momentarily. As pretty much all of his gold is in unreliable gold at the moment. Viper looks like he's going to go Assault Cross himself. The extra armor and basically damage for his entire team will be pretty huge, considering they're fairly physical based. As Clinkz does a majority of the damage. The rest of the team is just there to CC, and the wards are also physical, so they do a pretty big chunk of damage as well. Wards are going to be thrown out. Surprised they threw them out for this tower and didn't save them for the tier 3, unless they don't plan on going to it. And I think that's the case. They just said, we're going to play it super duper safe, and Slark's going to steal a bunch of extra gold on the wards. Correct decision by Titan, but it's still a very risky one. Clinkz is there. And does get the tower. Surprised he didn't get denied. But with over 300 damage, it is very hard to actually do it. Nick Assassin does blink forward, gets a nice stun, but no follow-up. And there's the Daedalus. No buyback for Clinkz, but I don't think he needs it. He's got the Aegis. And killing him once is going to be difficult, especially if he keeps his Dark Pack up. And killing him twice is going to be virtually impossible at this point, considering the damage output of Arrow. They just don't have enough. As you saw in his last few engagements, they've got good control, they've got decent damage, but I'm going to say this probably 1,000 more times. They don't have any real damage. Mirana's going to have a Lincoln Sphere, but no damage. If you're against a team that's pretty tanky, Clinkz is fairly tanky, Viper's tanky. Bat Rider's not affected by magical damage for a significant portion of time, and he's still got 8 seconds on it. Shadow Shaman and Rubic not that tanky, but there's just no damage on Arrow outside of Slark getting a bunch of Essence Shift procs, and that's not enough. Arrow does fly by Mirana, but just nowhere close to landing. And this is going to be an interesting engagement. Because I feel Titan wants to just walk forward, push down this tower. Wards are going to be up by the time the minion wave reaches the tower, so Shadow Shaman should just throw them down. And this should be a pretty easy tower. Yeah, Clinkz pops a strafe, just says, let me take the tower. And another free tower. Arrow not able to engage. They don't have great tools for engaging at this point, outside of a blink and pale, but... Yeah, that's about how I feel about a blink and pale as an engagement tool. It's a great counter engagement, it's a great pick-off tool, but it's not great for starting a team fight. He's going to have to basically counter-initiate, and that plays right into Titan's hands. They can pick and choose what fights they want, and they're likely going to wait for the next Roshan. Aegis has just fallen off Clinkz, and they're going to basically say, we're going to get the next Roshan, we're going to get Aegis cheese, that will be the third one, and then we're going to make our big stand. They don't need to make anything happen now. It's a smart, safe play. A lot of teams would have tried to push really hard with that last Aegis. Instead, Titan used it to get ahead. And as we can see, they picked up the Aegis at about the 0 gold mark, 5,000 gold lead. 5,000 negative experience, big swing to about 2,000 in the positive for Titan. And that's what they used the Aegis for. It wasn't a big play with the Aegis, but they picked up 2 towers towards the end of its life. They got a lot of just overall map objectives and extra farm, so it was completely worth it. Right now we're going to see both teams just continuing to farm. This is exactly what Titan wants, is just to farm out for another little bit, pick up their next big item, as no one on Arrow is that scary. And this is the big flaw of their lineup that I've said several times. They don't have any ability to really engage outside of Bane Elemental jumping in there, but just not a good they don't have any good options. Next Assassin, Vendetta, and blinking in, it's okay, but it's not good. And Batrider does have the gym. He's picked up Boots of Travel, so I'm surprised we don't see him split pushing more. If he just wants to run down bottom, push out this wave, then force engagement. But instead, it's going to be Arrow going all for it. Moonlight Shadow not up, which is kind of worrisome. They see Rubic, and Rubic should be dead pretty quick. Does stay alive a little bit longer than he should, but not that long. Arrow does fly, and this is Arrow's chance. They're down. They have an advantage. Rubic's dead. He's a decent part of the team fight. He generally steals a pretty good spell, and he's great at controlling the Slark, who is going to be able to pick up the Abyssal Blade pretty soon. Roshan should be up in about another 10 to 15 seconds. Not much. But if he were up right then, Arrow could have taken him and likely won the game, but it's still anyone's game at this point. It's all about the next engagement. That was just a nice pickoff. Pickoff is nice, and there's finally the Viper picking up the Assault Cuirass. He doesn't have a whole lot in terms of powerful items, but he's just such a powerful character overall that he does a ton of damage. He's very tanky. It's just a lack of true hearts you see on him, which is why Titan complimented him with a Shadow Shaman and Rubic, who have great CC on their own. Same thing with Clinkz. He doesn't bring a lot of crowd control, but he provides a lot of damage. So they kind of split it very nicely, having 2 big crowd controllers, 2 big damage dealers. Arrow, have they smoked up yet? Yes, they have. They're going to be looking for the Roshan. It's up. They probably don't know it's up just yet. Nice blink and pale. Does get the Clinkz, but that's a decent engagement. Nice use the Force Staff to buy Clinkz a little bit of time. He does buy enough to actually get off the BKB, but he does go down. Nice ward trap by the Shadow Shaman. And that's Alchemist gone. Slark in a lot of troubles. He doesn't have the ability to get in on anyone at this point. He's just kited around. No chance for him to survive. And that's the problem with Slark. He doesn't have the BKB, so he's just kited around the entire engagement. Rubic didn't steal anything particularly useful, but Spike Carapace is still fairly nice. And that's going to be a dead Nyx Assassin, and the gem passed back, which I do believe is a freshly bought gem for Arrow. So now they're in a whole world of trouble. Ultimate Orb on the ground. Looks like that was Clinkz. Likely you're going to be building Lincoln Sphere so he doesn't get initiated on like that. And the cheese is on the ground still. Who's going to pick it up? And yeah, there's the courier picking up the ultimate orb. And I really like the decision to pick up Lincoln Sphere on Clinkz, as he just needs to avoid that initial CC. Because at this point, as long as he doesn't get crowd controlled, he's going to do enough damage to basically dominate any engagement. There's just nothing that Arrow can do to stop him unless they get a Fiend's Grip on him like they did in the last fight. And even then, it wasn't enough, as he's pretty tanky. He had Death Pact on. He was in the mid 25s in terms of health. And it's only going to get worse from here, as he's sitting on so much damage, over 400 damage. Nice Nightmare on the Viper keeps him from initiating, but Clink's still going to run forward. Still going to be playing very aggressively. And the next item for Alchemist here has to be a BKB. Same thing with Slark. I don't think he can finish off the Abyssal Blade at this point. They don't need damage on the side of Arrow, considering the fact neither one of their carries can actually get to anyone to damage them. They need to be able to get to them on the side of Titan in order to really get the kill. Courier going to be running around, but it wasn't spotted out, nor was Clinkz, as there's still no gem on Arrow, as it was lost in the last engagement. And all of Arrow are just sticking right together. There is a newly purchased gem on the next assassin, so they did decide to pick that up and make sure that they have one for this fight. And they definitely have to have it, as it was a good engagement last time, but their carries got kited, and that's the big deal with melee carries, is if you don't get onto someone and kill them quickly and get onto the next target, you're pretty useless. And that time they got onto the first target well, but as soon as the Clinkz died, Viper had this Viper strike up on anyone important, and there just wasn't enough damage. Alchemist takes another tower, and they're forced to retreat, as we do see Titan rotating right towards the mid lane, doing some good damage to the tower. Clinkz will jump forward, do some good damage, but nice set of wards, and that's Nyx Assassin down. Beautiful counter initiation. Viper in a bit of trouble, but can you really kill a Viper at this point? At this point, you just have to Nightmare. Slark's going up, doing some good damage. Nice use of the Fiend's Grip, but it's just not enough. There's just no way to kill this Clinkz, and this should be Titan taking the game. Mirana in a lot of trouble as well, and just gets bursted down. Alchemist is there, but he can't do anything. He's kited. And that's why you pick a Viper in this sort of lineup, and it's kind of the story of the game. Alchemist can't do anything, Viper dominates. And as good as the Slark played, he played exceptionally well this game. He just couldn't get anything done when it counted, as this is probably their only chance if they want to make an engagement happen, is to have Mirana and Bane buy back. But I don't believe they have their buybacks. No, they don't. They're a few hundred gold short. Slark can rotate in, do some decent damage, but it's just not enough. Slark just constantly kited around. Alchemist is there doing some good work, but he's kited yet again. He was hit with a Viper Strike, and he just kind of sits there. As nice as it is to have all that damage and all those tanky stats, it means nothing if you can't hit the target. It looks like they're just going to sacrifice the Viper here. Solid decision. Just let him go. And look how long it took their entire team just to sit there wailing on him to kill the Viper. And they just don't have it. It's a mix of not having the damage and not getting the damage there on the side of Arrow. That's a big reason why both Slark and Alchemist kind of fell out of favor, is they're just kited way too easily. And that's the reason why we see a lot of Viper spiking up in play as of late. He just does such a good job of dominating the mid lane. He does a good job. I don't think there's a bad matchup for him mid lane outside of just a true counter pick. And even then, I can't think of one that would beat him significantly. Go even is about the best thing that some heroes can do. And I think we're going to see a lot of resurgence of the Viper, especially when the next patch comes in. And we see a nerf to several of the pretty strong mid laners at the moment. He's going to be picked up a lot to counter things like Ember Spirit and some of the other just dominating mid lanes. And this should be a good game, as Shadow Shaman's finally picked up the refresher. Yeah, he just barely has enough mana for it. I was trying to calculate it out, and he's got enough mana for the refresher and double ultimate. Not much more than that, but Does he need anything more than that? If you have 20 Serpent Wards sitting out there, you can do pretty much whatever you want. They're not Scepter upgraded, but it's okay. It'll definitely be okay. This should be the death push from Titan right now. As Arrow, the biggest way they can make a comeback here is to find a pick off, but Titan's not going to allow it. Arrow played well throughout the entire mid game. Just their early game wasn't strong enough. And well, maybe there's how they're going to make a comeback. Alchemist, Basher, a Slark, Abyssal Blade. Just get on someone and stun lock them. That's how they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to get a Fiend's Grip, get a good arrow, and just chain stuns between the two. Mirana pops the ultimate. Arrow flies, not on the mark. Slark is here, but he's kind of all on his own. Nice use of the Nightmare. Viper's going to take some good damage, but that's not enough to kill him. And Slark does not have the damage. They're just going to throw the Lincoln Sphere on him and back up. Titan have no reason to really rush this. They just need to throw out a little bit of damage here and there. Lincoln Sphere does block. Shaman throws up both sets of wards and is out of mana. But having all those wards there is just a ton of damage. Batrider with a nice blink initiation on a Nyx Assassin. Nyx is gone. Bane Elemental gone as well. Just obliterated. Clinkz is in a bit of trouble, but not really, because there's no way to really keep on him. He just pops the Ghost Walk and runs. The lack of gem really hurting Arrow at this point. Alchemist is going to stun himself yet again as he's slowed. Slow. As we do see an easy Brax by Titan, and this should be a good game. Clinkz is already rotated down bottom. Slark is trying to stay on him, but he can't. It's the power of just a team that's very crowd control heavy. You have multiple slows, and that's mega creeps. Slark gonna try and duel, but nope. There's another crowd control, and easy kill. And that's how the game that's how Titan decided to win it. They played the crowd control game. They kept all those melee carries from doing jack diddly squat. And that's an easy win by Titan. It took them almost an hour as Arrow made some excellent mid-game plays. And Titan just couldn't push very effectively. But it was pretty much in Titan's hands most of the game. There were a few instances where Arrow made some great team fights, but it was just not enough. And the power of Viper definitely showing that. Welcome everyone to the Keys of the Game, where we watch some of the highlights and big turning points in the game we just watched. The first key to the game comes in as Bane and Mirana make a big rotation. Bane's going to take a ton of damage before dishing off a single bit of damage. He does get a good brain sap off, but it's not enough to keep him alive for very long. Mirana lands a nice arrow, but it's just not enough. As Viper lives with a sliver of health, he does eventually go down, but look at all that extra time it takes. And Clinkz does do a good bit of damage throughout. And this gives Arrow a very nice lead as they come out 3-1 or 2-1 so far in this engagement. That'll eventually be 2-2 as Viper will pick up a kill on the back end on the Alchemist. And this snowballs Viper incredibly hard. It was worth it for Arrow to get the early kills, but it greatly hurts their team as the Alchemist can't do anything mid against a Viper who got a bunch of extra experience from that solo kill. The next key to the game happens as Bane rotates in and tries to pick up a kill on Viper. Just out of range of that Nightmare, Viper's able to dodge it for a few seconds. Mirana misses the arrow, and this gets turned around horribly on Arrow as they give a kill to the Batrider, and it gives Viper even more experience in this mid lane, making him level 7 to the Alchemist almost 6. And at this point, Viper just dominates the lane. Alchemist only at 5 CS. And why Arrow picked Alchemist with their last pickup against a Viper is incredibly puzzling, and it's definitely one of the major points of this game as it goes forward. The next key to the game comes in as Arrow smokes up mid and go for a gank on the middle lane. Clinkz shows off his new BKB and tries to kill the Bane Elemental from behind, but doesn't succeed in doing so. Rubic is annihilated right off the bat, and the Shadow Summon Serpent Wards go to town, wrecking Titan in this engagement. The Aegis is lost on Slark, but an Aegis is not that valuable at this point in the game. Batrider gets taken down and buys back. We already saw a buyback on Rubic. And that's just a lot of gold going in Arrow's favor. They don't manage to pick up the Viper, but still, they take 3, they lose the Aegis, and you say that's an amazing win for Arrow. And this fight definitely keeps him in the game a lot longer, and it builds up the Slark and Alchemist, allowing them to get much closer to winning this game. Next key to the game comes in as Titan is smoked and looking for a kill. They see most of Arrow in the middle lane, and this begins a major team fight. The big deal here is Bane is taken off the map immediately without even getting his Fiend Grip off. Rubic is also killed right away, but this is the problem with the fight. There's just too much tank on the side of Arrow. Slark lives just barely. Alchemist tries to teleport away, but he gets caught out and takes a ton of damage. The big problem here, though, too much tank again for Arrow, as the Alchemist is going to stay alive with just a little HP and gets a nice 4-staff away. Shadow Shaman with a good Yule Scepter, but it's just still not enough. Alchemist still taking low, but eats an arrow and is going to go down. Slark eventually pops the Shadow Blade and comes back, and they do lose the Alchemist as well. But Slark just continues to go on a rampage, cutting everyone down. And at this point, you have to feel that Arrow had taken control of the game, considering they team fought significantly better in that engagement. But as we'll see, that's not always the case. The final key to the game comes in as Arrow makes a dive for the bottom lane. They've just smoked up and are going to run right into Titan. They are initiated on, but they do some good damage, blowing up the Rubic right away. Serpent Wards do some great damage and force Mirana to leap out of the fight. But Slark does a good bit of damage as well, takes out the battery. The problem is, Clinkz is left all alone to deal his damage the entire time, wasn't pressured in the slightest, and Slark gets CC'd up the wazoo and kited around. Mirana's going to make an excellent escape down bottom, but that just shows the big weakness in Arrow's lineup. They don't have the ability to get on Clinkz, and they don't have the ability to keep anyone down for a significant period of time. Clinkz just got to free attack in that entire engagement, and that continues to be a theme for the rest of the game as this game plays out in favor of Titan. They just can't get onto Clinkz and kill him, as the Viper is way too strong and way too annoying, and it's just a really great pickup against melee carries. Thank you for watching this Gamecast by Pander. If you wish to see more, please check out my YouTube and Twitch links below. Thank you again for watching.